Hey, how's it going, guys? You may have noticed that it's been a little bit since I put out a Lost Colony episode, and that is because I've been rather busy in my real estate career, which of course is a really good thing. It's really exciting, but unfortunately, I haven't really had a lot of time to be able to record, and that is ultimately why I decided to not continue this series episodically, but rather I would record as much as I can on my own and give you guys a bit of a recap of what exactly went down. Now, for those of you that are brand new to the channel and haven't seen the series yet, first of all, welcome. I've also decided to give you guys a bit of a recap to get you up to speed. So I think we started out this playthrough relatively normally. Luckily, we ended up spawning in an area that was relatively warm for a frozen environment, so we were certainly very lucky there. We did end up getting ourselves a couple of tames. We learned that there was a level 1 baby bug relatively early, so we definitely took advantage of that, grabbing whatever creature we could in the area. And we also ended up making ourselves a bit of a starter shack. Now, as we started to feel a little more comfortable in this area, that's where things ended up going south. We ended up starting to lose tames. We started to die to hostile creatures again and again. And ultimately, we were forced to make a move to, hopefully, a safer location. Luckily for us, this new location that we ended up calling home was relatively safe, which allowed us to not only upgrade our character, but also allowed us to upgrade our creatures and even upgrade our base later, which with all of these levels gained along the way, we were able to check out some of the brand new Lost Colony exclusive items, including the fabricated crossbow, which I'm not too much of a fan of. I know this was pre-patch, and I know that they went ahead and made some changes to the fabricated crossbow to balance it a little bit better, but personally, I wasn't a huge fan of it. I know a lot of people like it, and I know that there's definitely some situations it could benefit from, but personally, just give me a regular crossbow and call it a day. Now that we were taming better and better creatures, this allowed us to explore the map a little bit more, most notably checking out the Lost City. Now, I will make note, guys, I am playing on the Xbox Series X, and at this time, NPCs and everything were not spawning into the map, so we didn't really get to experience the Lost City in its fullest potential, but it was still a pretty cool spot to check out, and overall, it was a relatively interesting experience. So after checking out the Lost City, I realized that in order to progress this series further, we were going to need some better loot. So let me introduce you to resource caches and defense outposts. Guys, in my opinion, I am not a fan of the resource cache missions. Now, of course, there could have been patches that made it a little bit better and everything, but in my opinion, these resource cache missions are just chaotic and an absolute mess. Your creatures are absolutely everywhere trying to fight off these waves, and I ended up just having a lot of issues with the missions overall, whether hostile creatures weren't spawning in or they were spawning in really far outside the zone to the point that I couldn't even find half the creatures. I also had a problem with my creatures end up meshing, which meant we ended up losing about 12 or 13 Veilwind at the end of the day. It was just an absolute mess, and in my opinion, I just wasn't really a fan of the resource cache missions. Now, defense outposts, on the other hand, so cool. I absolutely loved doing these outpost missions. I thought it was a really cool concept to make it into a bit of a mini game where the game kind of helps you with being able to set up these little turrets and structures to prevent the hostiles from getting through. I thought it was a really cool concept, and I really thoroughly enjoyed trying to figure out, like, what was the best tactic and what was the best strategy in order to just get through these waves, you know? And although we did both resource cache and defense outposts on Gamma, I really, really liked the outposts, and I felt like they were just a little more fun, certainly a lot more organized, and I feel like I ended up getting some better loot out of it, including some blueprinted tech, which was kind of crazy if I'm going to be honest. Now, for those of you that are brand new to the channel or you never saw this series before, now that you're caught up, what ended up happening next? So I'll admit, guys, the next time I was actually able to record this series was about 3 to 3.5 weeks later, and it's crazy to say it, but the first few minutes jumping back into Ark, I needed to relearn the controls. Kind of crazy, but yeah, I'll admit it was very surreal jumping back in and seeing how rusty I completely was. But after looking over everything, I realized that one of the things that got really, really expansive with the release of Lost Colony was, of course, the skill tree. I took some time to read through all the descriptions and see exactly what perks you could potentially unlock, and I realized that that should be the first step towards completing this map, which was going ahead and trying to get as many skill points as possible and just trying to get some perks on our character. So after getting a couple of skill points and a couple of perks onto my character, I set my sights on getting myself a flyer, most notably the Snow Owl. The Snow Owl is like one of my favorite tames in Ark, and it's a relatively fast flyer, which I feel that you need on this map with the verticality and the sheer size of this map, and I thought the Snow Owl was going to be a really beneficial tame, but little did I know, it was about to cause many, many issues. For one, a current issue in Ark and Lost Colony right now is when flyers spawn in and get in the air, they continue to go higher and higher and higher to pretty much get out of render range if you're in an area for a relatively long time, which of course meant the area that we were currently living in had no flyers in it. This of course meant that we had to travel to another part of the map, or any part of the map that we haven't really visited too much, which meant we had to travel relatively far. Now at this point, my main mount was the dire bear, and along the series I had a couple of issues with this particular tame, which was for some reason with the dire bear, when it did end up getting to its full max speed, any rock that it would hit on a particular angle would send this thing flying through the air and ultimately end up taking fall damage, which after a while, my dire bear would be on the verge of death like all the time, and it really became extremely frustrating to have to stop and heal this thing again and again and again for this issue to happen in the next couple of minutes, and I'd have to repeat the process again and again and again. Now, I know the simple answer is to go ahead and just switch out the tame for something else, but with the speed of the dire bear, with the health of the dire bear, and the attacking power of the dire bear, I really didn't have anything else that I could switch to at this time, which is why I was looking for a flyer. So after searching around here and there, I ended up getting myself into a pretty interesting situation. I ended up spotting a pretty high-level Managarmr, which I decided, all right, I'm going to try and tame this instead because I had no luck finding snow owls. At least I'll get myself a flyer in some form, right? Of course, there happened to be another interesting tame in the area, which happened to be a high-level Thyla. Now, this became a bit of an issue because I did end up potentially trapping the Managarmr, but with a high-level Thyla in the area, I had to make the decision, and ultimately, I had to kill it, and it was so upsetting to have to do it, but I thought at the end of the day, hey, I'll get a Managarmr out of this, and at least we walk home with something, and that's when the Managarmr escaped. So ultimately, at the end of the day, not only did I end up losing a high-level Thyla, I also ended up losing a high-level Managarmr, which, gotta love Ark sometimes. A little while later, I ended up finding myself a relatively high Thyla, and I thought, all right, we have to tame this because the dire bear is on the verge of death. I need to change out to something different, so let's knock this thing out. I got my trap all set up, ready to go, and that's when a Managarmr decided to also come into the fight. So not only did I have a high Thyla after me, I also had a Managarmr involved. And that is, of course, when, I ended up dying to the Thyla. So getting back to my stuff was, let's just say, intense, because I did end up using the Iguanodon for this journey, because if you guys aren't aware, as long as the Iguanodon is on all fours, it actually has unlimited stamina. So that was definitely a nice little perk of not having to stop and refill my stamina bar, especially when time is of the essence. But things started to get very frustrating when this Managarmr decided to not stop following me, to the point that I decided to jump off the mountain just to get it away from me, and it actually followed me all the way down, which was really, really frustrating. And I think you guys can understand if you've had any experiences with Managarmers, how they just cannot stop following you. And they are a little annoying. And in this kind of situation where I'm trying to get my stuff, making sure that I don't lose my things, this definitely added a bit of fuel to the fire when it came to frustrations. Ultimately, though, beaten and battered, I got back to my stuff. It took a lot longer than expected, but thankfully there was time to spare and I was able to get my loot, which was absolutely huge. But of course, at that exact moment is when our friend, the 140 Thylacoleo from earlier, decided to take on my Iguanodon. Now, at this point, I did have a choice of either trying to fight back or trying to get this thing into the trap, and I decided I was going to fight it at this point because if my Iguanodon died, I didn't know how the heck I was going to get home. After an intense fight, the Iguanodon actually killed the Thylo, which was really awesome until the bleeding ended up causing my Iguanodon to die. At this point, I stood there for a couple of minutes, and I'm going to be honest, I actually contemplated on just being done with the series, because at this point, not seeing the dire bear in the area, I can only assume either the Thylacoleo or the Managarmer took it out. The fact that I just lost my Iguanodon and potentially my only transportation getting home, along with the frustrations of having to deal with the Managarmer on the trip back, it was just all too much, and it was just such a bad day, guys. Out of all this, there actually ended up being some pretty good news, which was I completely forgot that I cryopotted the dire bear before even getting into the fight with the Thyla, so at least I did have some transportation getting home. At that point, guys, I did turn off the game and take a break because I knew if I continued, this series was ending one way or another. So after a couple of days away from the game, I decided to jump back in and look for a snow owl yet again. We were back to what we were originally searching for, and it started to feel like a relatively good day because rather quickly exploring this new area, I did end up finding a 145 snow owl with a kid. So I thought, okay, let's get the snow owl, let's get the kid, we can do some breeding, get an imprinted one, and we're all good to go. Remember the issue I spoke about earlier when it comes to flyers, how they fly up into the air and they go out of render and all that stuff? Yeah, that ended up happening here, which the frustrations quickly came back in, and we were out a 145 snow owl due to render range. Now, after what seemed like a couple of hours of looking for the snow owl, this happened. I think it's best to just show off the clip. I will admit my voice is a little more muddled at this point. I'll do my best in the editing process to make it a little bit more clearer to hear me, but yeah, let's just roll the clip. Nope. Tire bear's going all the way down. Perfect. Rex is stuck. That makes sense. Oh, the dire bear's gone. Oh, good. The dire bear's gone. Is the dire bear all the way down at the bottom, or did it mesh? All right, let's see. Let's see what happened. Dire bear might be at the bottom. Dire bear's at the bottom. Okay. I'm dead either way. Don't fall. Oh, fuck. Can I ride down onto the Rex? Nope. And that was it, guys. I rage quit the game. I got up, walked out of the room, and I've yet to return to Lost Colony. And I honestly don't expect myself in doing so for a very long time. So I just want to make a couple of notes at the end of this video, and these are, of course, my own opinion. You, the viewer out there, may have really enjoyed this map, and I'm glad if you did. Obviously, as you guys have seen through this video, not necessarily I didn't enjoy this map. I think as a content creator, as I'm recording the voiceover for this, it's kind of got me thinking that I might change the way I put content out to you guys in the future, because I feel that this is a constant issue when a new map does come out. The amount of bugs, the amount of issues that just come with these maps is frustrating. And the fact that we are 4 or 5 months since the map's released and it doesn't seem like any of this has gotten fixed. I mentioned earlier in the video that I took about 3 to 3.5 weeks off from recording and everything, and during that time I was keeping up with patch notes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I am going to come back to not a new game, but I mean all these differences, and it's going to run great and all that. And I came back to the same old, and I think that's just what started off the frustration of 3.5 weeks, 9 patches later, and it still runs the way that it runs. And I don't know. I don't want this to turn into a TED Talk about things that I don't like about this map and everything like that, because overall this map is to talk about my experience with this and kind of to recap how this series ended up going. And I think at that note, that is going to wrap up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it nevertheless. I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of style of video. Give me any tips if you have any in the comments. I am happy for any kind of feedback that you guys have, because if this is the type of content you would like to see in the future, I'm interested in pursuing this idea. Let me know what you guys think. But that is going to wrap up this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. I will give you a bit of a hint on the Svartalheim series. That will be coming out relatively soon. It's not going to end the same way as Lost Colony. Let's put it that way. There's a little more work that's going to go into that one, if that makes sense, without giving too much away. But guys, that is going to wrap up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts about Lost Colony in the comments. I can certainly expand on mine if that's a video that you would like to see, but we would do that separately, of course. And I'll see you all in the next one.